Before the battle comes training, and behind training are certain principles of good instruction. The good instructor knows these principles and acts on them. He realizes that he must know his subject inside out, he must prepare to put it over, and he must teach it in the best possible way. The good instructor keeps his men active all the time. Remember these things when you select the method of instruction you're going to use. Broadly speaking, there are three methods. First, the lecture.
I'm going to talk to you about the Nazis' blue-eyed boys. But don't get the wrong idea. These blue-eyed boys are tough and nasty. They're the Nazis' own private army, the super stormtroopers. Anybody know what this is? Yes, Smith?
A skull, sir.
Anything else we can call it? Yes, Bombardier.
The death's head, sir.
Right. That's the death's head. The badge of the Nazi Black Guard. The Waffenschutzstaffel in their own language.
Why should this instructor choose the lecture method? Consider the subject. Look at the size of the audience. He's got a lot of ground to cover and not much time to do it in.
Although they're a private army, they fight alongside their regular army. And here's how tough they are.
He isn't letting the difficulties of the lecture method get him down. He's started with a bang and he's chock full of enthusiasm. Enthusiasm in a lecturer is infectious, and an audience soon catches it.
Now, from these frontline reports from Italy and Russia, you will see right away the importance of being able to recognize these blackguards at once. Where they are is likely to be the direction of the enemy's main strength. You've all seen the blackguards in the pictures, but when they're fighting in the army, they wear the usual German army uniform. And what color's that?
Gray, sir.
Gray, sir. Good. Let's have a look at a typical SS man. Here he is in the camouflage suit he wears when fighting, which is worn over his field service dress. That's the type. I told you they were tough. And you've got to be just as tough to deal with him. Now we'll have a look at his distinguishing marks. First of all, there's his death's head badge. The SS trooper wears it on his cap, here. On the steel helmet, he wears these. Swastika on the left, SS on the right. Like this.
This instructor constantly jolts the attention of his class. You'll notice how he's using good visual aids, carefully prepared beforehand.
We made him a senior lance corporal, and his rank in German is a very appropriate one. Rottenführer. Well, Hitler was a corporal once. Now, has anybody got any questions up to now?
There are far too many men for the instructor to get a great deal of two-way traffic, but he can ask questions from the group and make sure that everything has been understood up to that point. He also takes up general questions now and then.
Now, I've said that the SS troopers are the Nazis' blue-eyed boys, and in proof of that, I can tell you they usually get all the latest in German equipment. Take this, for example. Anyone know what this is?
Panther tank, sir.
A Panther it is. SS armored divisions were among the very first in the German army to get this tank. Very often SS divisions have equipment that has not yet been issued to the German army.
Close contact between instructor and audience is the main difficulty. This man has got that contact, and even when the lecture is finished, he keeps that contact like this.
Now we're going to have a quiz to see how much you've learned about the SS troops. You don't need to write anything down, just put a tick opposite the correct answer.
This is a final test to make sure that your instruction has gone home. A quiz. Easily answered, easily checked. The lecture is used for putting over general information to a large number of men in a short time. Plan to make the most of it. Know your subject and be enthusiastic about it. Use visual aids. Give the chance to ask questions. Set a final test. and you'll be sure that your men have played an active part in the lecture. There's no difficulty in keeping your men active in the lesson method. Sergeant Black, whose class will be small, knows that the surest way of teaching new matter to small groups is the lesson. He's given this particular lesson on personal camouflage before, but he isn't making the mistake of thinking he can just give it time after time. And so, because he has a new group of men, Sergeant Black is making out a new list of questions which he's going to ask them. Next, he picks out a piece of ground especially for the job, and he shows his group of demonstrators exactly where they'll go and what they'll do. In the lesson method, the instructor's task is to keep his men active, mentally and physically. How is he going to do it? By asking them carefully framed questions which will produce the right answers, and by practicing every one of his men in the subject which he's teaching. Watch how he keeps constant two-way traffic between himself and each of his men.
Now, we're all agreed as to the object of this lesson. Now, why do we use camouflage? Mackenzie.
So that he can't see us, Sergeant.
Yes? And why is that so important? O'Brien.
So as we can kill them without being seen, Sergeant.
When he's made sure that his men really understand the object of the lesson, he goes on to the next stage, demonstration.
Now, I want you all to turn round and have a look at the country. Now, the gorse bush is your right of arc. Can you see it? Your left of arc is the lone fir tree. Got it? Now, can you see any men?
Yes, Sergeant. There's one in the hedge over there by the post and rail fence.
Good. Now, keep pointing at him, Robinson. Now, can you all see him?
Yes, sir.
Now, why was he so easy to pick out? Bates.
You can see his white face, Sarge.
Yes. Can he do anything about it? Jones.
If he can darken it or cover it, Sergeant.
Why is this lesson a good one? Because the men are kept mentally active every moment. When Sergeant Black asks a question, no one knows who's going to be called upon to answer it. So they're all on the alert.
Good. Keep pointing at him, Smith. Now, why can you see him? Sinclair.
The top of his tin hat, Sarge. Doesn't look natural sticking up there.
No. Well, how could he improve it? Mackenzie.
Well, he could make it look a bit more natural, Sergeant. Couldn't he put some glass in his camouflage nest or something?
Good. Anything else he can do?
This instructor doesn't let the minds of his men become static. And he doesn't let their bodies become static either. He moves them forward to have a closer look.
Now, can you see any more of them?
No, Sergeant.
Where did that come from?
Well, it seemed to come from somewhere over that tree, Sergeant.
Good. Have a good look and see if you can pick out anything there.
No, sir.
Now, why couldn't you see that chap?
The instructor makes absolutely certain that every step in the demonstration part of the lesson has been thoroughly understood. He does this by asking questions that will test the reactions of his men to the demonstration. He must be sure they are with him before he's able to go on to the next stage of his lesson plan, which is imitation or practice.
Now, you're going to try it for yourselves. One half of the squad will take up positions, the other half will try to pick them out. Prepare for battle.
He can't get camouflage cream, but a good instructor is always ready to improvise. The instructor's enthusiasm gets over every time. Add this enthusiasm to careful planning and ability to keep your men thinking and doing all the time, and your lesson is bound to succeed. The lesson can be applied to any sort of instruction, for example, map reading.
Rankin says we could use this route for the convoy. That's following the road from this village through to this town. Does anyone take a different view?
Yes, sir.
I don't think that's a good way. What's your objection, Lister? It's too steep. Too steep? How does Lister know that it's too steep? Simpson.
By the contours, sir.
Good. Follow them through with me.
Notice anything about the visual aid here? The instructor is not satisfied with small maps. He's made his own demonstration map, big enough for everyone to see. The lesson method is the one you'll be using most in your instruction. It needs, first of all, careful preparation. Preparation of material, place, visual aids, and the planning of the right questions. The lesson must be suitable to the class and the circumstances. And the instructor must keep his men active. They must be thinking and doing all the time. And so we come to the third method of instruction on our list, the discussion. We're going to let this method speak for itself. Here's a group of men from a new intake. They've been in the Army only a few days, just long enough to get inoculated.
Blimey, look where you're going, son.
We're going to board, shall we? Right? Come on, see what they got for us.
Discipline.
I know.
Good afternoon.
Pull the chairs round, make yourself comfortable. What's your name?
Bolton.
Well, pull up a chair, Bolton, will you?
Right, thanks, Tom.
Take your caps off. Smoke if you want to. Right, well, how long have you chaps been here now?
4 days, sir.
Still finding it a bit strange, eh?
Well, a bit, sir.
Yes. Well, I wonder if you're feeling the way I did when a crowd of us joined the Army. I can remember it as though it were yesterday. We'd been out on the training ground in Barrack Square all day. When we got in at night, one of the chaps said, the great change about this racket is there are so many so-and-sos giving us orders. Why do we obey them? Well, he started something. We went on talking about it until lights out. Finally, I asked you that question. Why do we obey orders?
Well, we'd get it in the nick if we didn't.
Here's one opinion right away. You're what, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Well, now, what thinks the only reason we obey orders is because we're frightened of what might happen to us if we don't. You all think that?
Well, if there was no punishment, I don't suppose we'd obey, sir.
Just a minute. Didn't you have any rules in Civil Street, sir? I know I had rules. I was a steeplejack, and in my trade, you obey the rules for your own good.
What do you think, Bolton?
Well, sir, I don't know. I think if you've got a new job to learn, sir, you'll learn it a lot quicker if you do what you're told.
You mean you're prepared to take the word of somebody who knows better than you do?
Yes, that's right, sir.
Well, I don't object to obeying orders, but I don't want to be messed about. That's all.
Well, then, as far as I can see, most of us agree that there's nothing harmful in obeying orders. Anybody agree with what? That we only obey simply because we're frightened of the consequences if we don't? Nobody? Right, then. We don't want to run an army on fear. What do we want to run it on?
This discussion looks casual and even unprepared, but in actual fact it's one of the most difficult jobs an instructor can tackle. Now, this instructor has these difficulties to face. He has to talk about discipline to men who expect that it will be unreasonable, and to men who are, on the whole, older than he is. In these circumstances, he chooses a method of instruction in which the men apparently do the work, and he keeps out of it and doesn't push his own views.
Well, let's call it goodwill, shall we? How does the Army try to get this goodwill?
Square bashing.
Square bashing what?
Oh, well, is it supposed to be a mechanized army, or so the papers tell us? Well, what do we want with all this square bashing?
That's one point of view. Anyone feel differently about square bashing?
I don't think the Army means that we shall be doing square bashing on the battlefield. It's really to smarten us up a bit.
Oh, don't count. Our street did his 6 weeks training, and you wouldn't have known it when he came back.
No, I shouldn't think you would. Well, I don't like walking up and down all day, but I suppose it's my own good. It teaches you how to move, it toughens you up a bit.
Of course, we're all used to going about on our own, but walking about in a body, that's different. That's what I learned in the Home Guard. After a week or two, my old woman objected. Every time we went out together, I was always getting into step with her.
It's just the same as the Boy Scouts. I mean, the Home Guard's just the same.
What?
Well, what I really mean is that in the Scouts, we found that really good marching made us take a pride in our troop.
Well, then, most of us seem to agree that square bashing does serve a useful purpose. We're smarter for it, we learn to move as a body instead of a collection of bodies, and it makes us take a pride in our unit. The only man who doesn't agree is Watt.
Oh, Ward. Suppose if you've got to move with the body, you might as well do your square bashing first.
Good. Well, I think we all agree about square bashing. What about dress? I mean the wearing of uniform.
You mean all this full about brass, sir?
Makes you feel a lot better if you polish up a bit.
Well, I don't object to the polishing. What I want to know is why can't they make up their minds about it?
Some of us had quite intelligent jobs before the war, sir. I think I may say, sir, if someone only told us all the reasons for doing these things, we wouldn't mind doing them.
Well, what do you think is the reason behind all this cleaning of equipment? Do you think it's sheer spite, or what?
The discussion method is best applied to a subject where most of the knowledge is already in the heads of the group, and you want to get them to think about it and worry it out together. At least as much preparation goes into this as into any other method. You must have noted the way the instructor arranged his group around him. His own bearing is worth noting, too. Friendly, informal. And for that reason, you're better not to have notes. Then there's the way he puts up the issues to the men. He refuses to be drawn by any statements, but tosses them back to the men to answer for themselves. He also keeps restating badly made statements and sums up from time to time.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in our talk this afternoon. We seem to agree among ourselves that we can't run an army on fear, and that people have got to believe in what they're doing.
And now, the discussion ended, he makes a final summing up. In this summary, the instructor collects the opinions of the group and puts them into a logical order. And he also fills in any gaps, like this, for example.
And then we came on to saluting. How it's really a mark of respect between comrades, almost a form of greeting. Somebody did mention, makes a good impression on the civvies. Well, what we're going to try to do in this unit is to teach you the new job you've come here to learn. That of winning the war as quickly as possible. And from our discussion this afternoon, it's pretty clear we're going to get on well together. That's all for the moment.
There are no hard and fast divisions between the three methods shown in this film. Any two may be combined, or all three may be used to put instruction over. Here, for example, an officer is going to use lecture, lesson, and discussion together in giving preliminary instruction in booby traps. Since this is a new subject to the men, Lieutenant Green has decided to start the instruction with an introductory lecture. Then the platoon will split into 4 groups, and each NCO will take a group in a lesson. Finally, there will be a discussion, with Lieutenant Green as group leader. First, the lecture.
Number 2 taking all threads, sir.
All right, thank you. Somebody light the fire, please.
Motion.
It's all right, Clark. We won't need the fire. I didn't have that matchbox planted there just as a joke. I wanted you to see a form of booby trap. That's what we're going to study for the whole of this morning. And since the subject of booby traps is new to you, here are some facts about it. The booby trap has become one of the Nazis' principal weapons.
When the number of men is large and the information has to be put across quickly, the instructor chooses the lecture method. But knowing that it's difficult to tell how much is actually getting across to the men, he'll resort to 4 helps: the vivid approach, the occasional general question, good visual aids, and a quiz. The instruction by lecture will be consolidated by the lesson, which follows now. A great deal of preparation went into the lecture. Just as much goes into the lesson.
Now, we're in enemy territory. We've arrived at this spot. What do we do now? Adam.
Well, search the place to make sure there are no Huns inside.
All right. We've got to get into this barn. How do we get in? Baxter?
Very carefully, I would say, Sarge. You want to watch out for booby traps.
Good. Now, where's the first booby trap likely to be? Collins.
Under that bar, Sergeant.
You say the bar, Collins. Where else is it likely to be first? John.
Might be under that step, Sergeant.
Yeah. You might put your foot on that step if you weren't careful trying to get to the bar. Now, what sort of booby traps is the enemy likely to put under that step? Edward?
For most subjects, as long as numbers aren't too large, the best method of instruction is the lesson. The instructor carefully plans the questions which will give him the information he wants. He keeps his men active, mentally and physically. And he can make certain that his lesson is getting across. And now, in this combined method, there is the third stage, the discussion.
We've all agreed up to now that this booby trap business is a lengthy affair. Booby traps take a long time to detect, and they take even longer to set. Now, why should we spend so much time setting booby traps?
They kill men, sir.
They put you off, sir. I mean, they sort of unnerve you. Look at the way I jump when I pick the matchbox, sir.
In the discussion, the instructor wants the men to reason out their opinions from their own knowledge. So you must be informal, bring up one point at a time for discussion, sum up and restate opinions. And you mustn't force your own opinion down the throats of the group. And so these three methods, lecture, lesson, and discussion, are combined in one, to the best advantage of the instructor and his men. Good instruction depends on good instructors. You are the men who are training the army to victory and to the peace beyond it. Now, what have you noticed about all these instructors? First, they're enthusiastic. Second, they're interested in their subject and know it inside out. They plan their work, and they decide on the method of instruction according to the subject and the needs of the men they're teaching. The best trained men are the best fighting men. And men who know how to win a war will surely be better equipped for a world that they'll take a hand in remaking.